The concept of social contributors is very popular today. Social entrepreneurship and social leadership have very good spaces in the society. And among very few pioneer social leaders, today we have with us Mr. Rajendra Mulmi in the open space. Let us welcome Mr. Rajendra Mulmi here in the open space.
Thank you.
Let's kick off the conversation with the story of your own. Say your story of activism in the field of social transformation. Where did you start from and what do you think you are today?
I was born and raised in Kathmandu. I went to primary school in a school nearby called Seshu Niketan and did my high school in English preparatory school. And after SLC, like every parent's dream, my father was an engineer, so I ended up studying ISc in science, in physics. Everybody thought ever since I was a child, I used to crack open the radio. People saw that I had a potential to be an engineer, and like father, like son, everyone wanted to see me as an engineer. And then I got into a volunteer program, an environment volunteer program run by an organization called SPW. So I was volunteering in rural villages in Dang and Bardia for about 5 months. And that was quite interesting. I mean, that was another turning point where I really got to do some hands-on work, learn new realities of life. And I really enjoyed working with children and young people in these communities, working in school, working on various environmental projects. And after a while, after having worked with people, I didn't want to work with trees and animals. Then after the volunteering program, I was also looking for jobs and stuff. But everybody wants to see what you're experiencing, what you are an expert of. And somehow I thought that, well, I don't have any other experience, but as being a young person myself, I know youth issues better than anyone else. So I thought I was a youth expert. What I also realized was at that time, back in 98, 99, the youth organization here there were either small youth clubs who are involved in small sporting events or volunteering events in communities, not really a bigger scope, or there were other organizations working with youth as beneficiaries, targeting youth for programs. Youth issues in some ways was nearly sort of monopolized by political youth. If you think of or if you hear about youth movements, youth issues, most of the time it was agendas put forward by the youth and political student wings of political parties. So I really saw that the social youth movement, the non-partisan youth, really lacked a forum to come together. So together with some like-minded youth, I set up an organization called Youth Initiative, which now is still running in its 13th year. The purpose and the vision behind Youth Initiative was really to dream of a situation where young people are valued, respected, they are listened to, where they feel safe and are safe, and where they can grow to their fullest potential. I mean, that was the idea behind Youth Initiative, and we really wanted to inform, empower, and engage young people, in all, so that young people, that there is opportunities for young people to develop to their fullest potential, but at the same time they can also contribute meaningfully to the society and to the development. And I really worked for a few years as a youth advocate myself. One of the strong advocacy we did was really to define young people. I mean, in a society where young people are very loosely defined, we really advocated that for a age definition of youth. And for us, young people was those in between the ages of 15 to 29 that we thought was more suitable to our socio-cultural context. And then Youth Initiative advocated for that, and anyone who crosses 29 then is not eligible to vote or to run for the office for Youth Initiative. As I was working with Youth Initiative, we also thought that youth-led organization was coming to being, but there was a lack of cooperation and coordination, collaboration among youth organizations. So along with few other youth-led organizations, we also started a youth network called the Association of Youth Organization Nepal. There was a severe lack of policy with regards to youth, and in the last decade there has been a lot of progress made in terms of the social youth movement. I mean, the social youth movement now in Nepal is pretty strong. And there are so many youth initiatives and youth groups coming up, youth-led movements, from issues of addressing climate change to issues of constitution building, democracy, human rights, HIV/AIDS, reproductive health, you name it. One of the criticism that I got while working in youth initiatives in ION was, a lot of our work was very urban centric. We engaged more with urban youth. And at a time where Nepal was in the context of the armed conflict, we were not addressing the peace building issues. And in 2006, it was also time for me to move on. I was 27 then. So I stepped down from Youth Initiative to hand over the leadership to the younger generation there. And then I joined Search for Common Ground, which is an international conflict transformation and peace building organization. I was interested now to also work with the rural youth and to engage in Nepal's, peace building initiative then. And ever since, I've been working with Search for Common Ground, and I'm currently the country director for Nepal.
As the founder president of Youth Initiative, and of course the founder president of ION, and having been in leadership for several years, for several organizations, what was your startup? I mean, why did you start these things, and what was your expectation frame?
The reason that we started Youth Initiative was really to fulfill the gap of a lack of youth-led initiative. Youth are always said that they are the future, but we strongly believe that youth are also the present. So the youth role should not only be waited for in the future, but constructive spaces need to be created now for youth to play that role in the society.
So that was your vision, and do you think that your vision is met now?
I would say significant progress has been made. There's still a long way to go. I'm very happy to see that when we started, there was only a handful of youth-led organizations. There were of course a lot of youth clubs in almost all the villages and communities in Nepal, but in terms of youth organization having a little wider scope, there were just a handful. Now you see a lot of youth-led organizations are there, not just in Kathmandu but other parts of the country. Young people are taking more leadership role. The Nepali youth voices are being more louder even in international arenas. You see young Nepali champions in many walks of life. So a lot of progress has been made.
Today, if we analyze the things going around, we have a contrary point. There are many youth who are following the youth wings of mainstream political parties, and there are also the youth who are following the non-partisan movements like done by different organizations like Youth Initiative and many more. Where do you see the difference? What is the point that is actually differentiating between those two different fronts of youth?
No, I think it is different aspirations and different interests of people. We certainly need a civil society. We certainly need political parties. So there will be some youth who would be interested in politics, some youth who will be interested in the civil society movement, some youth who will be interested more in businesses. So it is not either or. You really need to open up many different or as many opportunities as possible for young people to engage.
So let's talk about some of your international visits, international learning platforms. In 2004 and 2005, you represented Nepal in two different conferences. Will you talk something about those?
As far as I remember, I think the two conferences you're referring to is a World Bank conference on youth and a UNESCO youth forum. It was really a privilege to be selected as a Nepali delegate to be representing Nepali youth on these two major occasions, and it was really a wonderful opportunity to present some of our issues and challenges and listen from the other youth leaders from across the world about what's happening. And I was also so surprised at that time to see how the issues of youth in country like Nepal are so different to the issues of some of the other advanced or so-called developed countries. I mean, at the time where we are really struggling with basic human needs, where our issues are more about education, health, livelihood, survival, poverty. I mean, our youth counterparts from other countries were at the time talking about global issues like climate change, genetically modified foods. So it was also fascinating to see these differences and to see these issues on a spectrum. It was a great learning exposure for me at the time.
So you learned a lot of things. At the same time, did you find any differences on the level of thinking? Maybe the way you think and the way youth from so-called developed countries think.
I mean, there are of course similarities and there are differences. I mean, because we all have different country-specific backgrounds. So some of the things were different, and I think largely it was about the priorities. Our priorities were different. But the way we think about being young, that we think about some of the issues and challenges about lack of youth participation, youth not taken seriously, youth voices being unheard, underrepresented, is something that we shared across many countries across the globe. There are only a few countries which have done really well in terms of ensuring youth participation. But many countries shared some of these similar issues. But like I said, I mean, the differences were major on what were the immediate priorities.
You are in the field of activism since very long. What have you achieved so far?
To be honest, I don't know what I have achieved. One thing that really gives me a lot of satisfaction is when I, these days, when I come across young people who look very promising, either in workshops, trainings, and in other occasions too, somehow I feel that some of them are alumni of youth initiative programs. Some of them are people that somehow I have touched their lives with. I see very younger generation taking leadership of some of the organizations that I used to lead before. Youth voices are becoming more and more strong, and these are the things that really gives me satisfaction, because that is something that I really stood up for many years back and still continue to do in some ways.
So how does it feel like to become the mentor of so many young people doing a lot of activism work in the society?
No, I feel inspired. I feel inspired by the young people that I come across. Listening to the ideas. I sometimes relate to those energy, enthusiasm that I had many years back. Some of the ideas seem very crazy, but that's the advantage of being youth. You are not scared of failure. You are, you really are ready to take up challenges. You are not afraid to make mistakes. You don't really care if people think that you are crazy. If you are determined, if you have that passion, you want to fulfill it in any ways. If you set up some goals, or if there are things that you want to achieve, you want to do, then you become unstoppable. You just are determined to seek that goal. So yeah, I mean, and it's so fascinating to see fellow youth, both young men and women now taking leadership roles. And what I'm also happy and proud of is every generation brings in new energy, new ideas, new enthusiasm, and I think overall the youth movement in Nepal have benefited a lot from those add-ons.
So far we discussed was the positive fronts of youth. What do you think is the biggest tragedy of youth today in the Nepalese context?
I think one of the biggest tragedy is disengagement. I mean, there's so much of frustrations and negativity that, I mean, I see also a large number of young people being apathic towards everything around them, which is not really helpful, either for the young people themselves or for the country. So, I mean, one of the things that we used to say in Youth Initiative at that time is, hating politics is not the answer. Let's discuss about it. Let's engage with it. I mean, I think now a lot of young people are cynical about the future of the country and their future here. So, there's a lot of apathy, which is very detrimental. So, I think hope, optimism is something that we really need to reignite among our young generation today. If we wait for somebody else to come and improve the situation, we'll be waiting forever. If we really want the change that we want to have, we have to be the part of the change that we want to create. One step at a time, small step, turning big. Mahatma Gandhi once said, you should be the change that you want to see in the world. So, if we are not happy with what's happening around us, we at an individual level need to take actions, no matter how small. And it is those small actions actually which made a difference. And we have so many evidence around that really shows that it is these small initiatives and small actions that really make that difference.
Most of the youth in Nepal are involved in political ideologies, and there are less independent youth, and they themselves want to move abroad. In this scenario, where do you see the future of youth and the country itself?
Well, I mean, it's not bad to be engaged in politics. What matters is that engagement constructive and beneficial to youth? Are they being merely manipulated, or do they really have a say and an influence in the process? So the same goes with youth going abroad. I mean, I have a different opinion. I mean, if our competitive advantage is our youth going abroad, doing livelihood and in some way helping in the country's economy, it's also an option which really helps in generating more employment. In country like Nepal, where there might be limited opportunities, if we can extend that opportunities beyond the geographical territory, it's an advantage. But again, the question is, are the youth having to work in very extreme conditions, on low-paid jobs, on difficult jobs, or are they being able to really do good jobs that gives them a decent salary with good working conditions?
How do you differentiate the level of thinking between youth of your time and youth of generation today?
I don't know. How do you see my opinion different from what you have to say? I can speak for my views, but what the youth of the current generation are thinking, I mean, maybe you would be able to say that much better than I do. Yeah, but I think, but having said that, my engagement with the young leaders today, I think now, in terms of the opportunities, there are more opportunities than it existed, even 5-10 years ago, especially social media and the developments in information communications, handheld devices, smartphones have changed many things. It has made some things difficult, but some things also easy. So I see that the younger generation of today, have been using a lot of these new media technologies in their thinking, in their programming, and have benefited from it. That I see is one of the major differences. Also, I think again, we cannot generalize for the youth of Nepal, but there's also there's apathy of young people towards everything else, but also there is a growing interest of young people to get engaged in civic affairs.
Like as you said, investment in youth is very important for now. So do you think, would it be acceptable to invest in creativity, fostering creativity of youth for now, besides in health and education?
I think yes, definitely. I think one of the disadvantages of Nepali youth compared to youth from other rich economies is lack of exposure. I mean, you see a 16, 17 years old, foreigner with a backpack in the streets of Kathmandu, teaching in villages in Solukhumbu. The young people in developed economies have so many opportunities of exposure. Here, there is very lack of investment in giving young people the necessary exposure, the necessary opportunities. So investing in young people's holistic development, giving them more opportunities of developing to their fullest potential alongside studies is an investment that the country will benefit from both today and in the long run.
Youth gets frustrated and influenced from anything easily. They have one aim today and the other aim the next day. So what do you think youth can do to follow a specific path?
No, I think that is fine. That is fine. Confusion is the beginning. You don't necessarily, you should have an aim, you should have a goal, yes, but if it keeps changing for the good, which is fine. We do not necessarily have answers and clarity on everything at every time. Like I said, even, I started my studies in engineering, switched off to forestry, and then had a divorce with forestry a long time back. So it's like, I also kept on doing many different things at many different times. Now I'm working in the field of peace building. So as long as you are driven by a passion, as long as you have a dream that you want to follow, as long as you are determined to get where you want to get, having changes in plan, having one thought today and the other thought next day is also a characteristic of being young. You need to get there. Sometimes there is a path already that you walk on, and sometimes you know where you have to get there and you make your own path to get there. And I think that's also a beauty of being a young, and you can actually afford to do that.
So as a mentor for so many young people, and like you said, as an activist for youth today, what would be your message to youth?
My message is, be engaged. Be engaged in whatever way possible. There are negativity around. Yes, that things are not going on the way that we want it to be. We really deserve a better present and even more promising future. It is not happening now. If it will happen because of the young generations of today. Everybody, almost everybody have lost hope on our elder generation. If you see good examples of progress being made, whether it be in the media sector, whether it be in the IT, whether it be in the businesses, a lot of the sector which have been youth driven have comparatively more success rate in this country than other areas. So it is really time for young people to engage more constructively, to exercise the leadership even more. Come out, step out, whatever small actions you can take, start, and be engaged.
Thank you, Mr. Rajendra Mulmi, for coming to our show. It was really a pleasure to have you in the show.
It was a pleasure coming here. Thank you of this.
With this, we come to the end of this show. Next time, we will be here with another inspirational person and another inspirational story. Till then, stay inspired.